Hi, this is Lori Johnson with Hancock Whitney Bank, and you're listening to Local Leaders, the podcast. Visit localleadersthepodcast.com for previous episodes or for information on appearing on the show.
Hey everyone, before we get into today's episode, I want to shout out our sponsor, Level Dumpsters. Now look, it's fall and you're going to be out there in short order and you're probably going to be raking up a bunch of leaves. And when you're doing that, you're probably going to notice a bunch of things in your backyard that you need to get rid of. That's why you need to call Level Dumpsters. They have multiple size dumpsters, including 15, 20, 25, even 30-yard dumpsters for all your dumping needs. Whether it's cleaning up that backyard after you rake up those leaves, or you have a construction site and you need to clean that up, Level Dumpsters is who you need to call. And let me tell you, the great thing about all this is that if you mention Local Leaders, the podcast, you're going to get $100 off just by mentioning Local Leaders. So give them a call at 225-310-6647 or book online at leveldumpsters.com. Level Dumpsters is a verified partner of Local Leaders, the podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Local Leaders, the podcast. And you may or may not recognize these two gentlemen across from me, but they are here from the fire department and the police department here in the city. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves.
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Scooby. You may know me as Scooby. A lot of people call me Scooby. I've been with Denham Springs Police Department for 17 years now, 15 years in the retirement system.
Wow, very good.
Background, I'm a lieutenant with them. I help the chief run the department a day-to-day.
Alex Watts, Denham Springs Fire Department. Been there about 5 years now.
Yeah.
Come from a long line of firefighters.
Oh, very good.
Kind of falling into those shoes.
Well, you fight what I fear. When I run from the fire, you go into the fire.
That's
so shout out to you for that, Scooby. I called you Scooby for a long time, and my wife would correct me because somebody you graduated with is a good friend of hers, and she's like, it's Scooby, not Scooby. I said, it's Scooby.
Through the school year, if somebody calls me Keith, I'm looking for my mom.
Yeah.
Even if the mayor, I always say the mayor, the sheriff, or the chief, if you say some cop named Scooby, they're going to know who you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know if I even hear my real name around the office. It's Scooby.
Well, before we go any further, I want to thank both of you for everything you do. As I said, you go into places that I run from, and you go to people that I run from. So that's not to be taken lightly, and really is it takes a special person to do what you guys do. So I'm sure I speak for everybody in not only Denham Springs, but the entire state of Louisiana. I want to say thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. We really do.
So we're going to get into what we're here to talk about today, and that is a hotel tax that it will be proposed on the upcoming ballot, the presidential ballot.
Yes.
We're going to explain how that works, what, if any, effect on the citizens. And I guess, Scooby, we'll start with you.
It is going to be on a November ballot. It was designed by legislation. We didn't have a choice in that.
Yeah.
So I've done 11 of these talks so far.
Yeah.
And I say my goal is not, you may hear me say once during this podcast, vote yes, vote for us.
Sure.
Other than that, my goal is just to get the information out.
Yeah.
If I can get that information out, and as a citizen, as an adult that's voters, and you make a decision, I can sleep good at night.
I like that. And let me say this, I have seen several of the talks that you've given, and that really is like half the battle right there. And I do want to compliment you for taking the step of educating the voter. I think a lot of these things that are great ideas, and I'll say right off the top, I think this is a no-brainer.
Thank you.
But I think these great ideas sometimes maybe they fall short because the education's just not there.
Yes.
It's not the fact of the tax itself.
Right.
And so that's what we're
I know
here to
when
do.
people go to that ballot, we all have lives, we all have families, we all have work, we all have the things, and they're going to go in that ballot and vote what they want to vote for.
Sure.
When they see tax, that is alarming to people. That is a dirty word for some people, and I understand it. I live in this parish. I get it. My goal is just to go, when they see tax, go, wait, is this what Lieutenant Scooby talked about? Let me think a little bit before I make my decision.
Right.
That's my only goal.
Yeah.
And if you still say no after you've been informed, then it's just no. I'll promise you this: I have 10 more years before I'm eligible to retire. You won't see me again for this same tax. I always fight for pay and raise for first responders, but I won't do this again. The people I've spoke,
Right. Very good. So let's get into it, and I guess maybe let's start with you and talk about the reason and the need for this. How did that transpire?
Well, it's really an alternative effort to increase salary and benefits for fire and police.
Yeah.
Without putting the direct burden on the citizens themselves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a creative approach to not put that burden directly on the citizens.
Right.
So it's going to be for out-of-towners staying in hotels.
Yeah.
And it'll just be an additional tax on the people staying in hotels.
Gotcha.
So the chances of that being a citizen are very, very low, and that's why we went with that approach.
Very good. And in Scooby, one of the things that I really like that is actually written into this, I guess you could say, bill, is the fact that if there's a natural disaster or an emergency of some sort that will require citizens to make use of these hotels, and when I say citizens, Denham Springs residents, the tax can be suspended by the mayor.
So written into the bill, so we're 100% transparent, it is for salary and benefits for police, fire, and police and fire for Denham Springs.
Mm-hmm.
That is written in. That doesn't mean that the money can be used anywhere else. The chief can't say, I want a helicopter and use those funds. It's got to be for police salary.
Yeah, so it's earmarked.
That's in there. As far as the some of my talks and maybe some other people mentioned that the mayor can do it with a city council.
Yeah.
It would be brought before them. So we discussed this, me and the mayor personally, before I put words in his mouth. I wanted to make sure it was correct.
Yeah.
And he believes with the vote of the council that he could pause that for those disasters, for hurricanes and things like that, if his citizens need to seek shelter in those motels and hotels.
Yeah.
That is beyond my capability. I catch bad guys for a living.
Sure.
So if he's telling me that that's something that they can do as a council and him, then by all means, I believe him.
Yeah. And I think it's very important to for everyone to grasp the fact that this is not a tax on the citizens unless you're staying in the hotel and
Correct.
you live in Denham, and that may raise an eyebrow or two.
Right. So, I spoke at the school board for
Yeah.
the Livingston Parish, and they recently had something come up on the ballot for a sales tax.
Sure.
And I think in this parish, I truly believe in this parish that we can all agree that teachers, first responders probably need to make more.
Sure. 100%.
Where we're disagreeing, in my opinion, is where is that money coming from and how much is it? I think in this parish, everybody wants to see those entities taken care of. We have to do a better job of explaining where that money is going, how much it is, and hold true to what that law is and where it's going to permanently go.
Yeah.
So I spoke to the school board, and I got ate up for this and some news outlets that I said we had to get creative.
Yeah.
It's my job to figure things out that are difficult.
I got no problem with being creative.
I appreciate it.
I think that thinking outside the box has kind of led you to where you're at with this.
I would hope so.
particular bill.
It's just that sentence got picked apart, and hey, that's their prerogative. That's why
Yeah.
we live in America, right? But
Yeah.
I wanted to touch base on getting creative. Wasn't mean I'm getting creative on how to tax our citizens and look at that in a bad light. Getting
Right.
creative was I heard you. I heard you when you voted no for a sales tax, and I heard you when you say you're tired of sales tax.
Yeah.
I heard you when Jeff Taylor comes on your podcast and says, "Hey, get ready. The mills are going up.
Yeah.
We're doing a reset." I hear that. I listen. I pay attention. It's my job to think outside the box, get creative, take it however you want with that verbiage. But we had to come up with something else, and
Yeah.
we came up with a occupancy tax for our motels and hotels.
I think it was a great idea. And, I say to my wife all the time, there's more than one way to get to Florida Boulevard.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So if you go one way and there's a lot of traffic, maybe you take a side street. What you did here was that I think is just genius is you figured out a way to get the funding that you needed, but you're enabling yourself to do that without being a burden on the citizen.
Yes, and some I've been asked, hey, why doesn't the city fund y'all's raises and salary and benefits? And you gotta look, the city has a city to worry about. I'm talking about a street department, a water department, a maintenance, billing, utility, permits. They have animal shelter. They have a whole entity. I had a discussion with the mayor one year after the flood and said, hey, Scooby, $300,000 would do wonders for my pay scale, would do wonders. That's reoccurring. I need that every year.
Yeah.
He says, water pump went down at whatever station my citizens need to flush their toilets and have water. Do you have $300,000? No, sir.
Yeah.
So I understand where he's coming from as managing this whole city. Fire and police is just some of that. And you have to have a grown-up conversation with your leaders and the other bosses to come together and figure out a solution. And the city is for us putting it on a ballot for the citizens to vote.
I agree. And, you mentioned fire. And I'll tell you, people may not think about this when it occurs, but the fire department is right there hand in hand with the police. Many times the fire department's first people on scene, for some of these emergencies. And so one of the things with this particular ballot item that is going to be up on the ballot is the fact that you're splitting this money 50-50, which I thought was pretty cool. That y'all must get along a little bit.
No, look, I promised that when we were in this room, I wouldn't put my hands on him and he wouldn't put his hands on him.
Right.
I want to keep
no
my
battle
job.
of the badge going on here.
We have, fire and police have that. We have that banter, but we know when it's time to come together for a cause. And it's written in the law that way. They can't get 60%. We can't get 60%. It's written 50-50 split between us for those two reasons.
Love that. And why hotels?
We had to think outside the box. We had to figure out how are we going to retain people. This all comes to retaining fire and police and paying for salary and benefits to keep good quality applicants here. We picked hotels and motels because this is not something new. We didn't think of this 3 weeks ago. This has been 2 years in the making for me personally with state capital. Other places do this exact same thing with the occupancy tax. Our numbers show that we spend a lot of time at the 9 motels and hotels inside the city limits of Denham Springs.
Yes.
We just do. If people don't want to accept that or it's hard to hear, I'm sorry. I speak facts. We spend a lot of time between us, fire and police there.
Sure.
So our residents are kind of paying for that.
Yeah.
The city limits of Denham Springs residents are paying for us to spend a lot of time at those hotels and motels. So we're looking at altering how we receive funding for that.
Sure.
And that's what we came up with.
I think, and look, you mentioned it there, but you're not reinventing the wheel. This is not something that is uncommon in other parts of the country, and including Louisiana. Is it going to be termed an occupancy tax? Or
It is an occupancy tax. It's up to 6.75.
Yeah.
So is that a high percentage if we were talking about sales tax? Oh, yeah. It's an occupancy tax. So it's going to go off of, we tossed around the idea of, a set $3 per room. But as you know, $3 5 years ago is not $3 now. Right?
No, it's
Everybody's
25
grocery,
cents now, it seems like.
So we had to do a percentage, and we did the law up to. So if there is 4 more hotels and we get 5-story luxury hotels and we have an abundance of money, we can just roll back the percentage.
Right. Let's talk about where this money is going. So what directly would this be used for? I'm gonna turn to you first on that.
Particularly for us, we need to fix our pay scale.
Yeah.
Especially with inflation. It's really killing us as far as being competitive down the road. Our starting pay is very comparable to most departments around here.
Yeah.
But when you look at a Baton Rouge's pay scale, over time, when they put in 20, 25, 30 years, they're going to be making a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to get competitive with.
Right.
And then you have to look at it from the standpoint, last time we checked, there were 1,300 civil service scores that we could pull from.
Right.
And that's from the whole state. So you're competing with all these other departments that have better long-term pay scales than us, and we're losing because of that.
Wow. And Scooby, what about your side?
I'll touch base on the fire department too. They have a local district fire company that makes way more. Their pay scale is something I'm jealous of.
Yeah.
And that's, you don't have to uproot. Mr. Watts doesn't have to take his family and change schools and move. He can just drive 4 miles down the road to that department and just make more than what he's doing now.
Right.
That is hard. That is hard for that agency to deal with. And I've said this before. When we have our employees and we do maybe an exit interview, they don't ever say that they don't like policing in Denham Springs.
Yeah.
None of my officers complain that, oh, this is so hard, we don't like it, we don't like it. They don't ever say that. They like Denham Springs. They either grew up here, they want to stay here, they want to keep it the way it is. It's just the finances, it's the benefits, it's the insurance, it's I had a kid, but my wife can't put the kid. It's those technical things. Man, we have to fix that. Why am I losing applicants or losing officers a year, 2 years in? We train to get them post-certified and trained to do the job, and then they go seek a different employment at one of these various agencies that we just can't compete with.
And that training's expensive. It's not only an investment monetarily, it's an investment in that person with time
100%.
and training and all these things that you do to make sure that they are ready to go out on the road and police, right?
100%. I say this all the time. Do you want the upset officer showing up to your doorstep to take your complaint? When you call 911 and you have one of us there, it's probably a low point. You're having a bad day. And do you want the officer who's just upset because he's working mandatory overtime because the shifts are short? No. You don't want that guy. I understand that. I lived inside the city for many years. I flooded in the city with everybody else, with you.
Yeah.
I understand those things. So we have to keep those applicants happy. We have to keep them wanting to stay here. We have to keep their knowledge and continue to grow where they have 15, 16, 17 years and make lieutenant, where they're not making lieutenant with 4 years.
Yeah.
You don't get that education that comes with it and all the knowledge.
100% agree with that. And we had this conversation off camera. I think it's worth saying on camera. You may look at this and say, well, it doesn't really affect me. Maybe you live in a really nice subdivision. You don't hardly get any calls, any complaints. It affects all of us, because if your police department goes down, if your fire department goes down to a substandard level, your schools go down to a substandard level, it's going to drop your property value. That's why it's so important that your police departments and your fire departments and your schools, because even if it may not directly affect you because you don't live next to a hotel technically or something like that, it affects you. It just affects you in a different way.
Correct. Yeah.
Property values, you want to keep your property value, pay your police,
right?
Pay your firemen,
right.
Pay
Absolutely.
your teachers. That would be my advice right off the bat. And I'm not the teachers haven't paid me to promote this, but I love teachers.
Yeah. And how many people said they moved to Livingston Parish for their public schools? A lot.
Right.
A lot. That said something. So, and I encourage that school board to try to figure out a way to keep them teachers happy. My kid is in a public school in Livingston Parish, and he's special needs, and the programs are nice, and the teachers are great. I want that to continue. Yeah. So I encourage them to think outside the box and find some information and get some things done, as we have and my little committee has. It's difficult. You're talking about a tax. Nobody likes you when you talk about a tax.
Right.
I'm sitting here today knowing that I'm going to have feedback about another tax. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it has to be done. We have to have a discussion.
And it's very important. It's a tax on people that are staying in hotels. It is not something you're going to pay when you go to Walmart and buy your groceries or you buy a vehicle or anything like that. This is something that people coming in, they're paying what is a common tax all over the place. I stayed in Florida recently, and it was a pretty high occupancy tax. I believe it was over 10% at that particular hotel. This one at 6.75.
Yes, and they do have some taxes on the occupancy for the hotels already, and we would be adding to that. Yeah. So obviously the hotel owners, they're against me, and I understand that. If this is something that's going to affect their Christmas or something, I do understand that. I do believe they would probably just pass it on to the consumer, but I don't run their business. They run their business.
Yeah. Back to his point on the verbiage of creativity, we were getting creative for the citizens to keep that money from coming out of their pocket. That's why we use that term in the first place. Yeah. Because we wanted to do what we could to not put this tax on the people themselves.
I love it. And I think it's important. Look, you got outside the box. Yeah. That's the great thing about what you've come up with. It was that second way to get to Florida Boulevard without affecting people that already live here. I can't hammer that down enough. It's probably the most important statement on this particular podcast.
And that's why we were all on board with it, because it feels very considerate from us to consider the way they voted in the past on these tax increases. And we get it. We pay taxes too. Yeah. That's why it's more of a situational tax and it's going to affect people coming out of town more so than the citizens themselves. So that's what I really like about it.
And I would imagine from both your standpoints, the calls that you're getting to the hotels now are prevalent relative to where they were maybe 10 years ago. 5 years ago.
Yes.
Common occurrence,
Yeah. So
would you say?
You can contribute that to more hotels and motels. Russian Road has seen in the last 10 years probably at least those 3 taller ones. And we are responding, and so is fire, and the overdoses are high. The suspicious people around those areas and walking that interstate, those calls are high.
Yeah.
And then when we deal with you as a fire or police and it is an overdose or suspected criminal activity and we pull your ID and you live local,
yeah.
why are you staying in our hotels committing crimes when you have an address a few miles down the road?
Right.
So that's concerning. It's usually typically not the person from Iowa or Florida passing through that I'm dealing with. It's somebody who is using those to shelter their criminal activity.
Yeah. I actually, this is a little side story, but something people might find entertaining. At one point, I went to one of the hotels in Denham, one of the Hampton, I think it was, and our AC was out. My wife doesn't stay in the house when there's no AC, so I go get the room, and the lady looks and she says, "You live in Denham?" And I'm like, "It's not like that. My wife's in the car."
That's some explaining.
AC's out. But so sometimes that does happen. But I'll go ahead and pay the 6.75. No big deal. It's better than the missus getting very hot inside the house. That's for sure. But so it's very important that those people pay for the services that they're using, at these hotels.
Right.
If I were calling the police department and the fire department 2 times a day or even 1 time a day, I should pay more than someone that never calls the police or fire department, right?
You would think.
It just seems like common sense.
We have residents in our city that have paid their dues and their mills and their taxes and their sales taxes, and they've never utilized our service.
Yeah.
And they're still paying for that. And then we have people who aren't paying for the service. And in 2021, we had close to 1,000 calls between both of our agencies, but close to 980, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Close to 1,000 calls, multiple times a day, every day, 365 days a year. That's a lot for our city.
100%.
And of those calls, when it is an overdose, a lot of times it comes through as patient not breathing. So you're already sending 2 trucks.
Yeah.
So you have 2 trucks tied up in a city that has 3 stations, and there's 1 truck per station that's manned.
Right.
So 2/3 of your city's out of commission working something where they would possibly have to be performing CPR.
Right.
That's why you have the manpower down there. So you have 1 truck running calls for the whole city in that 30 minutes to hour stretch that call may take.
Wow.
So,
and that's expensive, I would imagine. I mean, that ain't cheap.
No. And then, so somebody else goes down, then you just have 1 truck. You have to probably get some kind of mutual aid assistance from another department.
Right. And let me ask you, from both of your perspectives, this is going towards salaries and benefits specifically?
Yes.
Yes. So our goal is we have to fix our retention problem. We have to stop the bleeding, as they would say. So we have to fix those pay scales, salary, and benefits. My goal at the PD is to at least fix that pay scale to retain people, and then we'll entertain using some of those funds to hire additional people. People have questioned me, hey, are you going to beef up the police department with these funds, because it can go to salary and benefits. We can't buy the unit. Can't buy the laptops, can't buy the uniforms, so that the city's going to have to come up with that funding. There's a lot of moving parts.
Sure.
But what good is it for me to beef up the police department to a 34-man department when I can't fill the 30 that we have?
Yeah. Well, you got to fix step 1 before you can move to step 2.
Right.
And step 1 is retaining them, because, if you have the money there to hire additional people, but you're still not where you need to be on pay, they're still going to leave. It's not going to stop them from doing that. And these are good officers in some cases, people you'd like to retain, but I'm a business owner, and if somebody left me for more money and better benefits, I hate to see them go, but I get it.
Jim, how about this? When they leave you and they don't seek a different kind of employment because they didn't like the job, but they leave you to another employment that's doing the exact same thing you were doing.
Yeah.
That means to tell me that they didn't like not being a police officer.
Yeah.
They're wearing another sheriff badge or another agency because they still wanted to be a police officer.
Yeah.
They left for that. That hurts me going, man, we didn't do what we needed to do here, because they still are a police officer and have been I know many for years.
Yeah.
After they left us, they're still employed at the place that they left us.
And same on your end?
Same on our end.
Yeah.
It's a little different because, like I said, our starting pay is comparable to most departments around
here.
But where it hurts is you're not increasing like you would at a Baton Rouge or another neighboring department. So you end up losing guys with 10 years experience because they should be much further along than they are. They have more kids and inflation.
And that's the ones you want to keep.
Exactly. So then you're losing experience.
Yeah.
And then you have to, a lot of times we don't get somebody coming from another department. A lot of times we get a green employee.
Right.
And that costs $4,000 to $5,000 just to train them, and then $3,000 in gear.
Wow.
And that comes from the budget.
Yeah.
So it hurts us with the guys who have the experience and everything leaving.
Yeah.
That's that can't be replaced for a long time, just in terms of experience,
Right.
So
makes sense. And Scooby, so let's give you a scenario here.
Let's do it.
All goes as it should go, and this gets passed with flying colors. Is it going to fix the problem?
I would like to hope so.
Yeah.
I can't see the future.
Sure.
I know there's even, I wouldn't say fights, but there's discussions we have to have. If this passes, we have to worry about the dollar amount that's going to come in.
Yeah.
Occupancy tax is not set every year that they're going to pay the same every year. So I can't ask the city to give me X amount of funds when they don't know how many people are going to rent hotel rooms for the next year. It's going to be reoccurring. Whenever I create a pay scale, and the city council has to vote on that sucker's there.
Yeah.
So their worry would be, okay, hold up, we used this amount of money off of this projected occupancy, but those hotels didn't get filled in 2026 like they should. So we have to agree to a safe number. We're trying to agree on 50% occupancy. So let me go off of if that tax does pass, the occupancy of 50%, use those numbers to create a new pay scale. There's a lot of things, but it would at least make us comparable with the other agencies. It would at least give us an argument when we do these interview and these hire boards where they're like, wait, how much? What is it? I need some ammunition to go, hey, let's re-interview this guy. Let's offer him something that another agency can't offer him.
Sure.
As you know, when Sean Kelly got murdered and passed away for us, Corporal Kelly last year, we didn't get any applications.
Right.
We were probably 7 down.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do a job when they see a cop get murdered.
Yeah.
And then you have a less competitive pay scale, and then they really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's just what I have to deal with. That's
important to also mention that this is on a pretty big ballot. It's on a ballot with a president. We got a presidential election for those of you out there that have been living under a rock, maybe the presidential election that day, and a ton of other stuff on that ballot, this being with it. How will it be termed on the ballot? Are you aware of that yet?
I'm not aware of that.
It's called hotel tax? Or?
I do have the verbiage of the tax, but I don't know what the ballot number is yet. I'm not aware on that. I know legislation put it on the November ballot. It wasn't our choosing. It was the state level that did that.
Right. And so it will be something that if you're a Denham Springs resident, you'll have the opportunity to vote for. So if you have to live in the city limits, correct?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't apply to the parish. It only applies to the incorporated city limits of Denham Springs, and it only affects the hotels and motels in the city limits of Denham Springs. So not the parish, not Walker. None of them are affected, citizens or the hotels.
Yeah. So if you, I know a lot of you out there that listen, you have a Denham Springs address, but you may not be in the city limits. I know people get confused on that all the time, so I like to clarify that. If you're in the city limits, you'll see it as you vote. You'll see it on there. If you don't see it, don't panic. You may not live in city limits. You may be outside of city limits, but have that Denham Springs address. And so that's why you wouldn't see it. And it's something that will only affect, I'm glad you brought that up, Denham Springs Hotel. So if it's a Walker Hotel, they got their own deal.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
They might copy you, but they got their own deal.
Hey, and I don't know. We had a field day at legislation at state level, and I don't know if they are concerned of people copying and seeing that this maybe is a good idea or avenue.
Yeah.
That's not my job. I'm not a legislator or
I mean,
politician.
I think it's a no-brainer. This is just a great idea for this city, and to get the people that deserve it, the policemen, the firemen, some more money in there, so these people can be paid. This is something I don't, Jim Chapman doesn't want to chase criminals. I just don't want to do it because it takes a special human being like you to do that. I sure ain't running into a fire. I'm out. Yeah, I ain't even grabbing the water hose. I'm getting out and calling you. Bottom line. So I think those people should be paid. I don't think you could ever pay you folks enough to do what it is you do. But this is just to get you competitive. You're not going to be millionaires off of this, right?
That's what I was going to say. We're not even getting starting pay up to $25 an hour. We're maybe first police responder, first police officer is at $17 an hour. I'm trying to get it up to $19.20. Yeah. With this, if this passes, people are looking at, man, 6.75 and all these hundreds of $1,000s. It doesn't go that long because I have to pay into those retirements also. We have to cover all aspects of it. So we're not going to be millionaires. I'm just trying to get us to buy some more groceries.
Right.
Right. We're trying to create stability in our departments.
And be competitive with other departments.
Absolutely.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. And this mayor, this city, he loves this city and loves the citizens in this city. And people a lot of time blame us for things that are out of our control. I've taken a blame for what they're doing to South Range Avenue. Yeah. I can guarantee Lieutenant Scooby had nothing to do with the plans of South Range Avenue and the medians that they're doing.
You didn't come up with that idea?
I did not come up with that idea. But people are going to blame the police because, hey, look what you did. We just worked the accidents. We're forced to write the citations whenever you make that turn, whenever it says you can't turn on red now. I didn't come up with that.
Yeah.
But I got to do my job, or my officers have to do their job. But a lot of times, just because of misinformation, they blame us. We didn't. I drive the road just like you do, and I'm looking like, okay, maybe this was a good idea, maybe it wasn't a good idea.
Right.
But we're here recently. I did this according to the public. No, I had no say so about South Range Avenue.
Scooby's changing the whole traffic.
And to be clear, there's no animosity towards the hotel owners in Denham.
Right.
It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
There's no ill will or anything like that. I understand they're running a business.
Yeah.
I completely get that. I run a side business as well. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, and that's right. I mean, nobody's picking on them for sure. 6.5% is this tax. I don't think that's a heavy ask for anybody. I would imagine that being someone that's a business person, if that were me, I'm just raising my rate 6%. It's not major. $3-4.
I didn't bring that up here.
A night.
We did the studies on all the hotel room rates, and we made sure when the legislation wrote this and it was up to 6.75, we didn't price them out of business.
Yeah.
We added that too. If they priced it to the consumer, they're still comparable to the other hotels and motels in Baton Rouge. We're not trying to put them out of business. It only helps us if they stay at 100% occupancy, if the citizens vote for this.
And a message to them out there, that because I know they're going to be listening to this, I can guarantee you, a message to them, this benefits you, because a good fire department and a good, happy police department are going to protect your hotel. They're going to keep it clean. Yes. They're going to keep the riffraff out of there. And you should want that as a business owner of a hotel. I don't want riffraff in my hotel if I own one.
You should. And they did oppose me at the city council when I spoke there, and the hotel owners did come to state level and oppose me. And I get it. They're fighting for their business.
Sure.
But like I asked the city council to put it on their agenda, it's not a vote for fire and police and against the hotel owners. I'm just asking for a vote for the citizens to choose. That's all I was asking for at the state level. The city level was, hey, can you say yes to put this on a ballot so our citizens can make up their mind? That is what I truly believe America is about, and let them decide.
Absolutely. Let the people have the say, and the people will have the say. But I will say this, a businessman sat down in this chair across from me one time, and he said, a lot of things I say as a business person, I don't necessarily agree with as a personal human being. And it's true. Business owners for hotels or whatever are going to say something looking at it from a business perspective that from a personal level, they might say, this is probably the right thing to do. So, and I refuse to believe that anybody out there would think the police don't deserve to be paid and competitive. Like I said, nobody's being millionaires off this, but just competitive. Be able to retain your people. I can't hammer that down enough.
I think the citizens, they're just worried about, okay, if I say yes, Scooby, where is that money going? I'm telling, it's in the law where it's got to go.
Yeah.
It has no sunset date, meaning it's there. Legislation can pass to change it later on down the line. I can't control what they do, but there is no sunset date. But it's written in the law. We can't go buy new vehicles and remodel the PD and put 2 stories on it. And it's got to go to our guys and girls' pay and benefits.
That's right. That's right. And to wrap this up, this is not a tax on the citizens of Denham Springs unless they were to stay in the hotel and they live in Denham. That's the only way they're going
Correct.
to end up paying this tax,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. For everybody out there that has questions about this, I'm going to put some links into the video here that you're watching, or if you're listening, into the audio where you can get more information on it. I'll be posting. I have some flyers that I'm going to be posting on the Facebook page. So you can check those out as well. And again, early voting starts on October 18th. Everybody go out there and early vote. Look, this is going to be a busy election.
It is.
Busy
It is.
election.
I see the library with early voting on Florida Boulevard. The lines start at all the other elections, so you can imagine this one.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on. So if you can early vote, because it's going to be a line a mile long on election day. Now, I've always had a tradition personally of voting on election day. I don't know why that is, but I'll sit out in that line for hours, and I think it's kind of cool. I love it that we all love this parish, and I love it that we all get together and exercise. At least every 4 years with a presidential election. We need to be better at voting on every election, but we get out there and we exercise our right to vote. And many of us have military people in our family and people that have died for the right for us to do that. I can't tell you how important that is. And I love to see people out there voting, and this is going to be on that ballot. Any final thoughts from either one of you on what's to come?
I think you can hit the nail on the head with it's not a tax on our citizens. We did try to think of an alternative other than that sales tax again, and those mills that Jeff Taylor are bringing up that's coming.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched base on all that. Like I said when I started this thing, I'm not saying yes or no. I'm hope my job says I kind of want some help, some relief, but I'm just here to educate. So when you do get to that button, think about it. Vote what's in your heart and make a good decision. And if it's still no, I'm still coming when you call 911. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. And any from me?
Same thing.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not a tax on the people. I think that's our biggest point.
Yeah.
That we want to get across.
Very good.
But yeah, I mean, to create the stability in our department that is much needed, especially with the guys that are going to be leaving the next 5 years retiring. We really need a good wave of new hires coming in and who will be there for the long term.
I appreciate it. And look, before we get out of here, I want to reiterate and say again how much I appreciate both of you and all of your colleagues that go out there every day and do what you do. I really mean that. I'm pro-police and I'm pro-fire more than anybody. And you just can't, in my mind, you can never pay somebody enough to do what you do. But I think this is more than reasonable. Awesome job coming up with it. And look, I don't usually tell people how I'm going to vote, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to vote yes on this one for sure. So if you got any questions, reach out to me, reach out to, I'm sure if they send you an email, you'll be happy.
We'll figure it out. I'll give you the facts of it and make a decision.
That's it. So thank you very much. Thank y'all for coming on.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate all of you for listening and watching. Look, we're coming up on 1 million views on YouTube, which blows my mind every day.
Look at you.
Awesome.
I know it. I can't believe it. But it's really the guests I have on. Look, they hear me talk every day. It's people like y'all coming on here that they want to listen to. But super blessed over here. So thank you to everybody. Please share this podcast. This is one that's very important to share so that we can make sure people understand what's going down with this tax. And so thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, sir.
And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman, reminding you, love your community, support local business, local police, local fire departments, and keep leading. Thank you very much.